Hi, welcome everybody, whoever's on the bridge and as well as on those on the video. Today is a session we're going to be talking about your career days as to how you can help build and develop your career in AMDOCS. And I think, as you all know, that AMDOCS spends a fair amount of energy and time to kind of help people develop their careers and to take their career paths into their own hands. So this is one of a series of activities which AMDOCS is doing. So that you enjoy working in AMDOCS, you start learning based upon the way you feel is important for your careers and how you develop that. And with the Horizon program, which was rolled out about a year or so ago, so this is a part of that career development program which our HR team and career development team have put together. So really the key thing really here is to first take this opportunity to learn about Dr. Tracey Wilen, what she can bring to help you build your career as you take control over your own career. Idea is to know where you want to go, learn and develop, and then explore career opportunities. So the idea is that you can then share experiences, with yourself, with your colleagues, and if need be, with other folks who can help you do that. So I'd like to briefly introduce to you Dr. Tracey Wilen, who's an expert in this space. She has been working in this for many, many years, and she's a visiting lecturer and scholar at Stanford University. She's worked in some of the leading firms in the Bay Area in the industry, for example, HP and Apple and so forth. And she's also had many, many books as well on the subject. So with that, welcome, Tracey, and I'd like to hand over to you so that we're looking forward to your presentation.
Thank you. And thank you for having me and including me in your session today. I really appreciate it. What I'd like to do is give you some snippets of various research studies that I've done over the years with executives of firms, with HR leaders, with employers, with recruiters, and kind of give you some visibility into what's happening in our environment, right, as we change from really what I call the classical world to the digital world. And, each of you already, I can see, have a lot of devices. I know you're probably on LinkedIn and Instagram and Facebook and Pinterest, and you're using it quite comfortably, and you're working in a high-tech firm yourself, so you know that we live in a digital world. But what you may not realize is that a lot of this, we have shifts. Society has shifted, the way that we run our firms have shifted, and it may have an impact on how we lead our teams and also manage our careers. So I'm going to go through a couple of the micro trends, macro trends, changing work, things about firms are doing with employees, a couple of skills, and then my favorite, the last, is it time for a career selfie? So let me go through a couple of the macro trends. Number one, hands down, when I did a large think tank with executives was, we're living longer. We're living to 100, right? And that concept is very challenging for people and a little daunting for people to think about. But whether you want to live to 100 or not, medicine is going to facilitate it for you, either giving you forever pills or making sure that now we can edit the DNA of our children so that they live long enough to take care of us as we live to 100. But I actually went out to over 200 executives and said, what does it mean to you if I say to you you're going to live to 100, right? What comes to mind? What do you think about? And most of them said, if I have to live to 100, I have to afford to live to 100. And if I have to afford to live to 100, I might have to work until 80, right? Here's a model, right? We're working 80. And I go, well, wait a minute. I started working when I was 20. That means I have to work 60 years? Oh, my God. Well, actually, this guy is working 90 years, right? Because he's 103 years old. He's still working at Walmart. So for the individual, all of a sudden, our career has really changed. It's not that one stop anymore, right? In your mind, you already realize. And in order to do that, you have to stay healthy enough, you have to stay educated enough, and you have to stay technical enough to be able to keep working. So it's a very different landscape today. But you as leaders and managers are seeing the other side, which is your workforce. There used to be, 3 generations maybe at most in the workforce, but today there's actually 4 generations in the workforce, and actually 5 generations in the workforce. Hear us? Okay.
They can hear you.
Oh,
I can hear you.
Thumbs
They
up.
can hear you.
thumbs
That's
up.
good. Yeah.
Okay, so McDonald's is telling me that their youngest employee is 14 and a half years old, part-time on a permit, and Walmart, as we see, their oldest employee is 103. So we know we have 5 generations in the world. Yeah. There's a gardener who's 101 down in Arkansas. They say everybody goes to just see him. But they love their work, right? This is just... But you as managers... Right, you as leaders and employees are now dealing with all these complexities in the workforce. And every generation has a different expectation about work. Every generation has a different expectation about leadership. Every generation has a different idea about what they should be doing at work. But what I always hear about is that every generation has a different idea about technology. There are the younger generation wants everything on an app. And they're probably banging on your doors. Or if you are a young person, Z or millennial, you're saying, why can't everything be on an app or multimedia? But you may be from a different generation where, hey, wait a minute, the company's doing great without technology. Why? It's not broken. Why fix it, right? And then there's some generations that sit right in the middle, or people say right in the middle saying, I like technology, but I'm not comfortable using it, but if someone trains me and helps me use it. The other force is that we live in a VUCA world, which is volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. It's actually an Army War College term, I'm told, which means a day in the life as a first responder. But what happened is executives were saying to me is this is what it's like to run a company today. Because you never know, depending where you live, when there's a natural disaster, whether it's a snowstorm or a major typhoon, right, or a hurricane that could just wipe out your supply chain, right? All the phone lines are down. Or you never know when there's going to be a cyber attack. Security is top of mind for people. We had inundated with security attacks and data attacks in 2013 and 2014. This didn't happen in the past. But you know what they tell me about the most? Is that you never know when that little bitty startup comes out of nowhere and eats your lunch, right? Some people in the room probably don't even know what Blockbuster was, right? You probably only know Netflix, right? Airbnb, Uber, right? I rely on Uber today, right? And Dropbox or Box, right? These are brand new startups that come out of nowhere. And now all of a sudden we have to be incredibly vigilant and prepared to be able to lead in this kind of environment. Another concept is smart machines and automation, right? We live in this world, right? We see the Google Go, artificial intelligence, and personalized robotics. We see them everywhere. Actually, here at Stanford Mall, the security guard now in the mall are robots with the video cameras. And they're very personalized. All the kids go and hug them because they're about the same size. And, you may see robotic bellboys, right? You might see robotics everywhere. And people say, wait a minute, not my job, right? Is automation going to increase jobs, replace jobs, or transform jobs? And I had a fascinating conversation when I was in New York at this hotel that has a robotic bellboy. It's called Yotel. Some of you may have been there in New York or seen the fully robotic motel in Japan. And I said to them, really, are robotics changing jobs or technology? And they said, Tracey, let me just tell you a story. The bellboys here were given a choice, right? What do you want to do now that we're bringing robotic bellboys? And a lot of them said, you know what, I can only be a bellboy. That's it. So I have to leave the hotel and go find a job somewhere else because I'm unwilling to really try anything new. And they said the second set said, you know what, give me some lateral moves. Rotate me into other parts of the hotel. I'd love to learn new skills. So they said we did. They said the third one was actually pretty smart. He actually went to the company who made this robot and said, I'm technology skilled, and I am the best bellboy subject matter expert you'll ever meet, I could be your director of operations and sales. So they said, actually, he was probably the most clever of the three because he's making a lot of money right now. So the decision really is up to you in your careers, whether it's technology or something else. How are you going to keep ahead of this VUCA world and this curve? So we called it the T person. Just think of it as breadth, depth, with a technology overlay. What companies are looking for today, both in their employees and in their leaders, are people who are specialized, yet at the same time visionary. People who are generalists, but at the same time technical. It's almost like an uber set of skills, an overlay that we need to think about. I also want to just touch a little bit on globalization and how much that has transformed our lives and work. I used to joke and say we moved from, it's the eBay to Upwork kind of worlds, or the Etsy to Fiverr, right? How we find innovation and talent has actually changed, because today you can go out to Etsy or eBay and you can create a whole marketplace. I mean, I did when eBay came out. I went in and cleaned up my closet and I took international currency in 2 hours. And I was dumbfounded that I, as an individual, could be an international business from my phone in a matter of hours. Incredible. But then I also go out to Fiverr and Upwork because I'm a business, right, and I need help. And I can't afford the big talent in Silicon Valley, so I go out and advertise for video or data help or Excel, help me crunch my spreadsheets for $5 an hour, right? I find talent all over the world on these electronic marketplaces, and it's really good, really, right? Excellent, right? World has totally changed. So on one side, global business, good for business. On the other side, global talent. Your competition isn't just your neighbor next door, it's people all over the world. And there's a lot of people who are looking for this opportunity. So it makes you think about, as a leader and an employee, what is the future of employees and work? A lot of companies are telling me today that they're crowdsourcing. They're going out and actually buying innovation through the masses of crowds. I'm sure you've heard about crowdsourcing. Apple talks about it all the time at their developer meetings. They say we spent $6 million to crowdsource people to help us develop apps for our phones, for our watches, right? They need the talent. They'll go globally. But other companies, Waze, right? Lay's, Lego, Starbucks, they either host prizes or go out and ask for ideas, right? Because they realize innovation can happen anywhere and everywhere. On the same side, they also have firms that are getting on-demand talent, right? There's shortages. I was, as I mentioned, visiting with Walmart. And Walmart said, we use GigWalk because we're based in Arkansas, but we open up stores all over the world. And we have to make sure when we open up a facility, just like here, that the parking spaces are correctly lined, the handicap spaces are in the right spots, right? That the doors and the windows, and then inside the store, the products on the shelves are aligned well. And they said, now why would we fly in people from Arkansas to do that? When people have phones and cameras, and we can give them a checklist, and they can go out and take pictures and videotape for us. And they do. And they get about $23 to $25 an hour, or for gigs, right? And so 7-Eleven does it, BMW does it. Field agent. Think about every time a Nordstrom or Saks or Macy's or opens up a store. Well, they don't want to send people out. They can have mystery shoppers. They get them locally and they go in and it's all handled online. Some of you might also just use a lot of the on-demand. I use Thumbtack a lot for my on-demand, whether it's carpentry or helping me install lights or taking videos, actually, when I'm on the road. So we also have this on-demand talent occurring globally in the marketplace, which makes you wonder about firms. What are firms going to look like in the future if we can crowdsource innovation and also crowdsource on-demand talent. Us as an employee, are we going to become cogs in a wheel? I don't think so, but it's really up to us to make sure that we don't. On the HR side and the leadership side, let's make sure that we don't let that happen, right? That we keep allowing and creating environments for our employees to keep innovating and developing themselves so we don't have to go outside. But I get nervous because I look at the statistics. 1 out of 3 in the U.S. actually are freelancing because a lot of the creative class are saying, do I really want to be on a salary treadmill? I want to be with firms that can really let me grow. And if I can't find it, do I need to go out and do it on my own? I don't think so. I think it's very exciting times at firms, but let's just remember that as managers. So how is technology changing industry? Well, I look at something really simple like the car industry because I think everybody can identify with cars. There's inexpensive cars like the Nano. There's expensive cars like the Bugatti. We have customized cars like the Mini Cooper. We have electric cars now, natural gas cars, and autonomous cars. And why do I bring this up? Well, when I grew up, a car just took gas, and I had to change my own oil, and the key to a car actually looked like a key. Now it looks like a fob, right? You can't change your own oil in your car. You're waiting for that text message, right, to tell you to go down and bring it in. Because when you open up that hood, you can't jumpstart people anymore. That underneath your hood is just a complicated, computerized, right, wizardry. But actually, a lot of people say cars today are computers, intelligent mobile devices on wheels. They're really very different. The whole industry has been transformed by technology. But I would say actually not. I would argue that cars are software in a box. Right, for those out here in Silicon Valley, you see those Google cars whizzing around, right? They're usually sitting in the back seat and nobody's in the front seat because the software is really driving the direction, the GPS system, the sensors, right? So products today is really all about software, and that's why your company and your employees are so important because we have actually evolved very quickly, maybe more faster than you thought, into a software-driven world. In fact, if you look on the left there, let's just go back to the auto industry. This is where a lot of the major cars are coming from, whether it's in Detroit or in Germany or in Japan. But now let's look at the right. This is where the cars are coming perhaps in the future, or at least we have to partner with these firms. Apple has a car, Uber will have an autonomous car, Google will have an autonomous car, Tesla. And actually, IBM just announced a lot of partnerships with Watson, artificial intelligence, to be and develop the next generation of cars. So industries are being transformed overnight by software, and that's where you are. So I hope I made a compelling argument that we've shifted from this classical world into a technology-based world. And so what I want you to think about are there new skills that we need to think about in addition to reading, writing, problem solving, critical thinking, right? All of that stays in place. But are there a new set of skills? And actually we came up with 10. But I won't go through all 10 of them with you. I'll just talk about a couple of them that might be useful for you. The first skill is that we actually live in a multimedia world. Right? Multimedia literacy is a new skill that we have to think about today. In fact, 65% of the population are visual learners, but many of us continue to deliver information in a very flat world. But we know that 18 to 34-year-olds would rather learn using multimedia. They'd rather go out to YouTube than pick up a book. Yet we still market and deliver training and education using flat text. I mean, I'm frustrated because I have a multimedia-rich presentation, right, and I'm limited in my little box today because I'm flat. This is flat, right, but we need to bring things alive, multimedia literacy, but we use text. Sense making is another skill. We live in a data-enriched world. And the skill is, how do we make sense of all this data that's coming at us from everywhere? I'll give you a short story. There's a store out here called Nordstrom. You probably have it in a lot of your locations. If you don't, if you know of a Macy's or a Harrods or a Saks, wherever you live. I actually got a phone call from Nordstrom's here in Palo Alto. Customer service. They said, "Hello, Tracey. We miss you." Could you imagine a customer service in a store calling you up and saying, "We miss you"? I said to them, "How could you miss me? You don't even know me." And they said, "Oh, actually, Tracey, we know you very well. You see, because you signed up on our email opt-in a couple of years ago, 3 years to be exact, and we started collecting data about you. In fact, we know what brands you wear. We know what departments you shop in, right? We even think we know your favorite salesperson. And we miss you because, you see, you shop at Nordstrom usually every December and every August. Right? Everybody's laughing here for those, right? It's the sales season, right? And they said, "What happened, Tracey? You missed December." So they said, "We thought about it. Maybe you're on a business trip, right? Or maybe it's a holiday season and maybe you're with family." But they said, "God forbid you were shopping at a Harrods or an H&M or a Macy's or a Saks and not here at Nordstrom. So actually, Tracey, we want you back." This is all on the phone. "We want you back, and we'll give you a $100 gift certificate. We're going to put it right here in Palo Alto." They did, in the store, because we want you back. I get off the phone. I said, "This is the creepiest phone call I have ever gotten in my life." So what did I do? I called up Nordstrom HR. And I said, "I just got this really freaky phone call. Your customer service in Palo Alto said that they knew me. They told me that they missed me. And now they're giving me money because they want me to come in and buy from them." So I said, "What's going on?" They said, "Tracey, it's Silicon Valley. We brought in a bunch of interns, data scientists, and we asked them to help figure out how to make sense of all the data that we've been collecting." And they said, ultimately, right, they stopped the program, right, because it was flipping out customers. But they said, ultimately, what we're trying to do is get to know people so we can have a relationship with you, so that when you come in the stores, the right inventory is there for you. And, of course, that would help us increase sales. So sense making. How do you develop this skill, right, to make sense of all the data that we're collecting? Another skill is design mindset. Now, here I am in this beautiful office here today, and a lot of firms are thinking about, how do I design the environment? This is Zendesk, by the way, up in San Francisco. I just happened to be with them a month ago. And they redesigned their offices, right, to increase productivity, right? Why are we thinking about cubicles? Even here, right, you're seeing collaboration spaces because groups work on teams. Design mindset. But I also want you to think about, because you're a very virtual organization, is also design mindset means also workflow. How do you design the workflow for your distributed teams so that you maximize productivity? And here's what's interesting, is what we find is every group could have a different design mindset. Some groups may be completely in the office, and the workflow and the environment designed so that they're together. But you might have other teams, like I ran a team of 65 virtual people all over the world, and we had to think through how to design the workflow. We really did manage them by objectives so that employees could be at their most productive, right, while they were working. So I encourage you as leaders, as managers, and employees to think about your own productivity and how can we design the work with each other that we're doing. Design mindset, a skill. How do I design the environment and the workflow so that we are at our utmost productivity? Computational thinking. I do a lot of education speeches, and the teachers say, what do we need to think about as our students are sitting side by side, either with robotics, computers, artificial intelligence? What is computational thinking? How can we really translate the problem so that computers can assist us? And a friend of mine at MIT said, computational thinking is not that hard, right? You just have to start to think about how do we work with machines so that we can inform them in a way so that they can help us make decisions. So she had an analogy that she used that everybody uses computational thinking. Just think about a dinner party. If you're putting together a list, a big list of a dinner party, well, linear thinking, who's on your list, you're starting from the top and you're going down. Binary thinking, she said, look at your list and you're starting from the middle and you're looking up and down. Parallel processing, you're cooking the meal. You're thinking through the grill at the same time as the dessert, at the same time you're either baking or boiling your vegetables, but that's actually parallel processing. You're doing all this at the same time. And pipelining, she said, is really like serving the meal. You're figuring out how to cook the meal and serve the different dishes at the same time. Pattern recognition, she said, if you look around the table and you see that nobody ate dessert, you're thinking to myself, is the dessert bad? Or maybe everybody's on a diet or gluten-free or something. And storage. As you empty the dishwasher, so just storage, analogy of storage. So computational thinking is something that we can help our younger people learn, and at the same time start to think about how to formulate problems so that the computers can help you. Last skill, novel and adaptive thinking. This is actually one of the most interesting. If you can think about how to borrow a trend or a technology to resolve a problem that you're already solving today, right? So you're solving problems every day, but new technologies and trends come, right? On demand, sharing, artificial intelligence. Can you start to look at these new technologies and resolve problems that you're already solving, but so much better? Let me give you an example, 3D printing. I used to work in manufacturing, right? And we used to make prototypes. And then the 3D printing came. And for those of you, if you haven't seen a 3D printer, just imagine your printer and pouring in a different kind of ink, liquid plastic or liquid metal, and then programming your printer to print something, like a prototype or a toy. I've seen print toys. Or I've even seen wedding cake icing get printed out of a 3D printer, right? Because they poured in liquid sugar. Well, now we have a doctor. He's a reconstructive surgeon. He replaces noses, chins, and ears. And he looked at the 3D printer, and he does it quite well, and he's done it for many years, but he's been using a different kind of substance that may not be taking very well in the body. So we looked at a 3D printer and said, what if I poured liquid human collagen into the printer and printed ears? And that's exactly what he did. Dr. Benasser actually, and I have a great visual to show you, but uses 3D printers to print human ears. He resolved a problem that he's already solved in a much healthier way, in a much more creative way, in a way that's actually better for humans. So think about different kinds of technologies or trends that you can borrow to be able to solve problems that you're already solving. So let me just touch on a little bit about the workforce. Our worlds are moving very quickly. You're working 24/7. And the workforce is actually moving as fast and changing too. So here are some trends that leaders, employees, HR directors are telling me that are happening in the workforce that maybe employees or leaders are not all aware of. Number one is we shifted from the employee mindset to the entrepreneurial employee. Now, I think a lot of our younger generations will come in with this mindset, but many of us have gone to work thinking and learning that work will tell us what to do. Work will tell us our career path. Work will tell us our next task. But that sort of has shifted on. What work is really looking for today is that T person. Remember, transdisciplinarity is that person who's going to really be, as one leader said, CEO of your job. I remember bringing in employees, and I would say to them, you see this job I've hired you for? It's not going to look the same 1 year from today. Can you tell me why? And the reason is because of you. You as the CEO of your job are going to keep on top of the strategy, the trends, what's happening, the technologies, and you're going to shift this job to be evolving, because that's what employees today do, and that's what leaders need. Number 2, succession planning should start at day 1. And this is for the managers and the leaders in the room. Remember I said we have 5 generations in the workforce? Well, interesting enough, I went out and actually asked 3 generations, our millennials, our Gen Xers, and our boomers. And I asked them, when do you think that you will be a leader? And interesting enough, our Gen Xers and our boomers, so that's sort of our people in their 30s, 40s and up, said, I guess I'll be a leader in my 40s, or I was a leader in my 40s. But guess what? Our millennial group in their 20s, they said, I'm going to be a leader in my 20s. So there is an expectation today, which we need to be aware of as leaders in companies, that our younger generations, that people will want succession planning at day 1. That's during orientation. So you can be the next CEO. You can be the next vice president, right? You can be the next. And we see that a lot, particularly in the startup firms, that young people are in these positions. It's highly desirable today. So remember that as managers and leaders, as you have multi-generations in the workforce, anyone can be your next leader. On the flip side, longevity does not need promotion. And I constantly meet people who say to me, you know, Tracey, I've been working in this firm for 10 years, and this new person came in and got promoted above me. What's that about? I should have been the next in line. Or, why did that very young person leapfrog? Hey, you know, I'm in my 40s and 50s. I'm supposed to be the next in queue. And what executives will tell you is, it's not about longevity anymore. It's actually about solving problems that you weren't hired to solve, right? It's not me telling you what to do. It's more of you telling me, here's a problem, here's a plan, and here's how I'm going to solve it. Because contribution today is what separates leaders. This was a very interesting article I read. That's actually a custodian at Disneyland. She just took it upon herself to take her mop and start drawing Disney characters on the sidewalk. And it started to grab a lot of crowds, right? The kids thought that was hysterical, that this custodian could take her mop and start drawing Mickey, right, and Goofy. Well, she's very popular. You can see the crowds around her. She displayed leadership skills. She went out of the box with her job. She didn't have to do that, but it delighted the customers. So now custodians, right, she's a lead custodian there who teaches other custodians how to create, right, characters out of their mop, because it's an addition of entertainment that Disney didn't think of, but it actually is quite clever. So think about, can you think some out-of-the-box solutions, right? Constantly contribute. Another is, a lot of firms have shifted from the individual contributor, the diving catch. I mean, look, I worked in technology for many years, and I remember we used to give out spot bonuses for the individual who could save the day. And then we realized that's not very good because it's usually a team that saves the day. So start thinking about teams and enabling, if you do have that high-performing, what we call the A individual contributor, position that, or if you are the A contributor, position yourself to lead the team. So we want to make sure that all of the members on our team are A players and that we bring them all to success and that we do reward teams that can really collectively bring the firm ahead. Big shift. Another one is making your manager look good has been replaced with having a strong employee brand. Let me just give you an example. When you walk into a hotel, the first person you meet is not the general manager. I'm going to bet the first person you meet might be the bellboy or the concierge or the reservation front desk. Your impression of the hotel is probably made on that initial meeting. If you get on an airline, the first person you meet is not the general manager of United or American, right, Airlines. The first person you meet is probably the flight attendant or the ticket agent or someone in the personnel. And your impression of that airline is based on that meeting. Same thing in retail. Right? You remember whether it's a Starbucks or another coffee shop between the exchange that you had. So remember that as an employee, it's actually your brand because you're dealing with customers, you're dealing with vendors, right? And as leaders, make sure that your employees understand the culture of the brand and can really position you in a positive way because it is about employee brand today. And a final skill and trend is this whole idea of social intelligence. You might be hearing about these, well, let's put it this way. If you're sitting in the room today and you have a director title, supervisor title, vice president title, if you didn't have that title, would people follow you? Seriously. If they didn't have to follow you, would they? That's social intelligence. Really understanding how to connect with people and lead them. But I'm also looking at the employees in the room. Some companies are doing that. If they could vote you on a team, would you be voted on or would you be voted off? Right? Do you have the social intelligence that you understand how to work with team members, communicate with vendors and customers, and be that leadership? So social intelligence is beyond emotional intelligence. It's actually the ability to connect, understand people, and anticipate behavior. Let me give you some best practices. So this is for managers in the room and also employees. Can work both ways. So number one, lateral moves. If you're a leader or manager, encourage your employees to make some lateral moves. It's just as important as moving up. If you're an employee and you want to challenge yourself and broaden your skills, sit down with HR and your managers and find out what opportunities are there for you so you could expand your skill set. It used to not be popular, I know that, but today companies really realize that you need to develop this T person, this complex set of skills. And it is a good thing. And in fact, recruiters will tell me that they will look for people who actually spend 4 to 7 years doing different things and then make rotations on. Which is the second one, job rotations. As leaders and managers, think about creating job rotations. I used to do it in my group. I called everybody a project manager, and then we would sit down and we would make a list of the 5 things that we loved about the job and the 5 things we hated about our jobs. We all did it. And then we would kind of do like the grab bag, and someone would say, could I have that bad thing on your list? Because I'd really like to do that. And we would swap. We'd still all be project managers, but we would job rotate, skill rotate, because it gives people a chance, a simple way of expanding skills. Are there high visibility projects, skunk works in your organization? Could we move people into that opportunity to get a little more visibility? Cross-functional teams. I remember when I was in manufacturing, I realized I needed more technology, so I raised my hand to be on a cross-functional team. It's above and beyond my job, but I realized that I needed to be on the ERP team. So I understood how enterprise resource planning was really getting deployed at the company I worked for. And I needed that technology just infusion somehow. Cross-functional teams, is that a way that you can pick up some marketing skills? Is that the way that you can understand what logistics does? Or another group? Internships and externships, some companies are doing that. They're actually letting people take an internship somewhere else overseas, abroad, or also making agreements with vendors and customers. Could we rotate employees so they get a better visibility of the job? Reverse mentoring. Do you have very young people in the workforce today who are very savvy about technology? Can you pair them up with a more seasoned employee, maybe who is not as savvy, but in exchange they mentor them on the process and protocols of the firm because they may not have had that opportunity to learn it? Skill training, that's for managers in HR. Ask your employees, what do you feel like you need? Could I bring it in? And networking. These functions that you do, bringing people together to network and to be able to find other people in the company to learn what they do and their next job rotation. Okay, the last section. You've been a very good audience too. Career selfie. About a year ago, you probably saw that Google, or maybe not, published a statistic. Google said that on the Android phone, we take 93 million selfies per day. Can you imagine? We call it navel gazing sometimes in the U.S., right? We don't even know how many selfies that we're taking on the iPhone. I saw that and said, that's really interesting. We're spending a lot of time looking at ourselves, right? Posting pictures. I wonder how much time we actually spend looking at our own careers. Do we? So I went out on this hunt to find out how much time do college students, young adults, adults working spend on their own personal career planning. And here's what I found. I couldn't. That statistic there on the right is how much time college students, 2 years out of school, who still have not found a job, spend on career planning. It's an hour and a half a year. Compared to, on the left, 2,800 hours of sleep. Right? Big gap here. Now, what's in between? This is what adults do with their time. We buy cars, we plan vacations, we buy houses, we plan our weddings, we eat, we drink, we go to leisure and sports games. We do anything but plan our careers. Right? But why is that important? You remember in the very beginning, I said, how long are you living? To 100. A lot of us even older than that. So you'll be spending at least half your life working, and at least, right, a third of your day, right, at work, right, spending time at work. It's right, daunting. Yeah. So when you put that in perspective, you probably say, shouldn't I take a career selfie? Which is really a look at your own personal playbook, right? But we know, here at AMDOCS, you're in a 24/7 world. We get that. It isn't where you go to work anymore and then you can turn it off because the kids are calling you at work. And you can't go home and turn it off because people are texting you from work or expecting you on a video call or conference call. So we live in this 24/7 world. So now we need to start thinking about our careers in that way. It's integrated. It's much more integrated. You have to think about your career plan, your health plan, your social plan, your family plan. How is that all going to work for you? So I'll tell you an interesting story. I met a CEO years ago, right? So I was young. It was unheard of to be a CEO in your 30s. But this guy was. Now, I know here everybody's a CEO at 20 today. But in those days, a very large public firm. And I said to him, how is it that you got to be a CEO by age 39? And he said, Tracey, it's really simple. And he went into his wallet and he pulled out this crumpled up piece of paper. And he started to unfold it. And it looked something like this, right? It had like ages across the top. And it had categories going down the left-hand side. And he said, the way you become a CEO by age 39 is you write it down. He said, it's a really amazing thing. When you write down goals, big goals, all your energy starts to move in the direction. So he said, I wrote down I wanted to be a CEO at 39, which meant I had to write down when I wanted to be a vice president, which meant I had to write down when I wanted to be a director, which meant I had to think about what kind of firms I needed to work for, what kind of skills I needed to get. But he said, I even wrote down when I wanted to get married, have my first kid, my second kid, buy my first house, second house. So he said, whatever it is that's important to you, just remember to write it down and start creating big goals and then develop the little goals to get there. So it's very simple. You don't need a complicated career plan. You just really need to do a single sheet of paper and start to write it down. I'm going to stop here. That was a lot of material, and I didn't have my multimedia with me. But I really thank you all for your attention. I'm thinking if you'd like to either email in, text in, phone in any questions or thoughts or ideas that you have either as a manager or a leader or an employee, this would be a good time for us to take that information now.
Thank you very much, Tracey. If you have any questions, please press star 41 on your phone so you can ask her questions. And hopefully you will have one or two questions, and so Tracey can answer those. And if you feel you don't want to ask questions on this forum, feel free to email and text as well. So, we live in a multimedia world, as we heard. So it's a great opportunity to do that.
Yes, and I would love to hear examples that are happening globally or nationally where you're doing something different, or a best practice that you would be willing to share, or talk about that it's helping you with developing either employees or developing yourself.
Are there any questions on the...
I don't know how much to do your computer. Oh, okay. Talking about selfies, I better take a selfie. Let me take... I'm going to photograph you all. I hope that's okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Nothing else.
So, right, I don't think there are any questions, but Tracey, thank you so much. That was a very enlightening presentation, actually, even at a very personal level. I think we can learn a lot from that, not just for career, but even for life. Some life goals. The last slide was very fascinating. So thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining, folks. It was a really great session. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. And please do send in your questions.
Please link with me. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. I'm on email. Just TraceyWilen.com. It's really easy to find. Instagram, whatever, however you want to communicate with me. But please connect with me. I know it's really hard when I don't have my tools with me and you're far away. But happy to talk or chat with anyone and just hear what you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks all. Have a great day.